I had not had anything to drink, and I had not been to sleep yet, and I was just laying on my side, and all of a sudden I felt my spirit body move out of my physical body, and I was moving rapidly out of my body and watching myself look at my physical body and my husband's body, and I was moving through the ceiling and up into the sky. And as I watched myself move out of my body, I could feel my heart stop. And I can't say that I was alarmed because I felt this overwhelming sense of peace.
With me today is Rachel Corpus. Rachel, welcome, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
To get us going, how about you tell us about your childhood and how you came to realize that you're an angel incarnated here on Earth?
Thank you for that question. I am posed that question a lot, and so I've thought about it quite a bit. And I think the clearest answer I can give you is I didn't know any differently. Thinking back, suppose I could tell you that I always felt a little bit different, I guess. But I think all kids are a little bit weird, aren't they? That's their job, to be bouncy in their body and, to be kids. I remember very clearly being able to see what I call light beings. So my family was Catholic, so we went to Mass every Sunday, and then on Wednesdays I had catechism. And so when we would go to church, I would see what I now know are angelic beings dancing up near the ceiling when the music would play. And so I would watch them, and I would see dead people, actually ghosts, near my house because we lived by a cemetery. And so I really don't think that ghosts hang out by a cemetery, but I believe they were there waiting for their family to come visit. So they would be coming and going, waiting for their visitors. And I wasn't afraid of them because they didn't look bloody. They looked like me. They didn't necessarily look translucent or anything like that. And I was able to see spirit animals. And because I was really interested in things like strawberry shortcake or Fraggle Rock, I could also see elementals. So I could see fairies, things like that. And I was very imaginative as well. So I really didn't know the difference between what was on TV and what I was seeing in the yard because I didn't need to know. I didn't know what was made up and what was real. When I went to elementary school, I was still seeing these beings in the hallway. And when I would address them, my friends said, "Who are you talking to?" It was at that time I realized, oh, I'm seeing extra. I'm seeing things that other people can't see. Then I started to, I guess, tone it down a little bit because I realized that there was something going on with me that not everybody was experiencing. The angel part of it comes in when my family had a car accident when I was 4, and I had a near-death experience, and I left my body for a period of time, and that near-death experience was very, life-altering because when I was out of my little body, I was not a 4-year-old out of my body. I was a grown-up. I was having grown-up thoughts. I was articulating and thinking as I am now. I had this grown-up voice. I was Rachel, except more wisdom than I could ever have in this version of me. And these angel-like beings that I could see when I was at Mass were talking to me about what was going on with my physical body. They were telling me about the car accident and what damage had been done to my body and my options. I could stay with them and I could go back. and what would happen if, whichever trajectory was followed. And if I were to come back, basically, you talking to me here, this would be my life. And what the universe could get out of it if I was brave enough to share my story. And they said that I was like them, I was an angel. And they were very clear. Listen, girl, it's no big deal. You're downplay it, all right? And there are a few of you that are going to be on Earth at that time, because they call it come of age. And it's not an age thing, but it is reminds me, Rod, of a coming of age movie. When you get to that full circle moment, when it's time, the world will be ready. They'll be ready to hear things like this. You and I couldn't have this conversation maybe even 2 years ago. People would say, oh, that's BS. We're not ready for it. She needs to go back into therapy. I do all that joyfully and have done all of that. My noggin's been checked. They said that when I feel right about owning who I am, the world will be ready. Those who are ready to hear it will embrace me. And those who are not ready to hear it, it's good for them too, because it'll start a conversation. Our world will be ready to disagree, but still play in the same yard. We'll be ready to begin that journey again.
Well, I didn't actually realize that you'd had a near-death experience. I must have skipped over that bit in one of your previous interviews. So do you have much in the way of memories? As a 4-year-old, I guess most of us don't really have much. We don't remember much from then. But is it still clear in your mind what occurred?
It is, because that near-death experience doesn't register in my mind as something that happened to a 4-year-old. Since my near-death experience, I instantly went into, I call it my old soul mind. And I was articulating, really as an old soul, I have all those memories. I think it would be different if I left my body and I was experiencing that as a 4-year-old. I wonder if I would have retained those memories. I don't have a lot of memories as a 4-year-old. I really don't. I don't have a lot of childhood memories. I have some spiritual memories, big ones, talking to ghosts, seeing angels. I have a collection of those. Some have come through hypnosis. I call them my collection. But in general, I don't have a lot of childhood memories. And a lot of my spiritual growth or my psychic growth has come through near-death experience. I've had more than one. And like many of us psychics, brain trauma has been something that has heightened our ability, as if, and this is not scientifically based at all, but it is as if our brain needed something to create room for it to behave in a different way. So my brain doesn't do math very well, but my goodness, I can go into the quantum realm. I can understand quantum physics. I can look into the quantum realm. I can see the wheel of time, or the absence of time, quite effectively.
Yeah, there's near-death experiences. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people, and there's definitely something gets cracked open. But that's the only way I can describe it. And some people, maybe were somewhat connected to the spiritual world, like it sounds like what you were, and some were just, it was not even on their radar. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, and there's no going back either. It's there now. And
Right.
I've had guests try to make it put the genie back in the box, and it just doesn't work. Would you mind talking about your other near-death experience?
Sure. One was quite subtle. And it happened just a couple of years ago. And I think this might be related to me being an angel incarnate, because I am quite loosely related to my physical body. All of us have a silver cord. All people have a silver cord that attaches our physical body to our spirit. I, of course, have one too, because as an angel incarnate, I utilize this beautiful form that I have as a costume, just like you have one as well for as many years as I'm here on this earth. And so when I'm meditating or sleeping or I have surgery or something and I'm not in my body, I'm aware of that silver cord. It keeps me tethered here. Well, I find that I'm not as connected to my body as most people because I am an angel in body. And so some of my near-death experiences, I slip out rather easy, and they're not necessarily connected to an accident or something like that. So for instance, one of my near-death experiences, I was just laying on my side next to my husband, and I was not on anything. I had not had anything to drink, and I had not been to sleep yet. And I was just laying on my side, and all of a sudden I felt my spirit body move out of my physical body, and I was moving rapidly out of my body and watching myself look at my physical body and my husband's body, and I was moving through the ceiling and up into the sky. And as I watched myself move out of my body, I could feel my physical, but I could feel my heart stop. And I can't say that I was alarmed, because I felt this overwhelming sense of peace, both because I had felt my body do that before when I was a child, and also I knew that I wasn't by myself. I'm used to feeling my angel helpers around, and I have a pretty solid connection with Source. I felt all right. As I was coming out, I had this feeling around me that was this blackness around me, but it wasn't a negative black. It was this sparkly, dense, I call it the quantum, and it wrapped me like a hug. And even though I had only moved about 10 feet, it felt immense. It was so vast. And I felt that there was so much space between me and my body, yet I could still see it. And in that time I was moving away, I was filled with all of this information. And what was given to me in that near-death experience was, we are all connected in a way that when we decide to come here to have a life experience, what's really happening is I'm here as an extension of you, and you're here as an extension of me. So even though you live where you live, when you experience something, even if it's a bite of delicious food, I'm actually getting a download from that. When I stub my toe, however I choose to deal with it, you're getting a download of that. So we're always pinging each other, always learning and uploading it back to the universe and uploading it back to Source. And I felt myself kind of go back into the membrane of Source, and it felt so good just to feel that oneness again. It was fantastic. And then as soon as I realized that I was going to be fine, but I remembered my children, I snapped back into my body just like that. I had this thought of, this will be fine, but in a few hours, my children are going to walk in and see me there with no life in my body. That's all it took. It wasn't, that time it wasn't posed to me as a choice. No one talked to me in my ear. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? We're always given a choice when we are out of our body, always, whether it is us remembering we can go back or a guide speaking to us. And that's how the choice was presented to me. I remembered it. And I wonder, I think it's because I think my husband would have understood. He's so strong. He would have been fine. God bless him. He's so strong, but my children needed me. And as soon as I knew that, I was right back again. And I was shaken for days. And I don't think that my gifts were amplified when I came back after that one, but my sense of gratitude and love for this world absolutely grew. It was just a couple years ago. So I hadn't hit my head or anything like that. It was just a simple slipping up and out.
And did you find out what was going on with your heart? Like, why did your heart stop like that? Did you
I
find out?
I went to the doctor and nothing came out on the read, except that when I mentioned the silver cord, when I went into meditation, I noticed that my silver cord had a knot in it.
Mm.
And I asked the angels what that was about, and they said that happened when you're something about when I was feeling my heart was beginning to stop. I was having a mild heart issue. They didn't call it a heart attack, a mild heart issue, when my cord was starting to get stretched too thin. And the angels knotted it. It looked like a necklace with a knot. They knotted it or clotted it or something. And that's all that I could find out about it. But when I went to get my heart looked at, it caused the doctors a little bit of worry when I talked about it, but they couldn't find anything.
Does it worry you at all that it just occurred and then it's gone and it's like like any day your
Sure.
number could be up?
Sure. The human side of me does, yes, but then no, after a few minutes, because I'm so good with my life and I know who I am as an angel, that I know the mission I accepted to be here on this earth for however long I'm supposed to be here, and I know every moment why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do, and I'm so filled with bliss and joy every moment. I really am, even when something really bad has happened to me in my life or could happen, I'm so right with it because I know who I am. It's all right.
I'm interested in learning more about the when you were 4, so the near death experience,
Yeah.
when you first had that realization with the angels. So I assume at that point you said, okay, by the way, you're an angel, and this is what's in store for you if you're going back. So can you talk more about? It sounds like there was kind of a mission plan laid out there, and you say, okay, yeah, I'm up for that. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Yes. And so when I was out of my body, when I was 4, they showed me my mission like a movie because I love movies. My parents owned a movie theater.
Oh,
So that
great.
was my language. Still is. Love the movies. So they showed me the 2 plans, the 2 trajectories as a movie. One was to stay, and they didn't hold anything back. It would have been wonderful and easy. Everything you can imagine in the heavenly realm with angels. They didn't have wings and halos. I remember being surprised. There must have been, Rod, a little bit of 4-year-old in me, because one thing I remember as I think back, I remember feeling, I know all this that you're showing me about the heavenly realm, but there were some things that I thought, oh, isn't that funny? No halos, no wings, because my Catholic upbringing, that's what they look like in the Bible. So I know there was a blending of me being 4 a little bit, but they showed me what it would be like to stay. And basically it was, you come back home, business as usual. Okay. But if I were to come back to Earth, I would lead a normal life until I got older. And then they said, you'll experience some trauma. And they didn't tell me what that was. They said, you'll experience some, I think they said hard things. You'll experience some hard things, but you'll be okay. You're going to find a best friend that you will marry. And your best friend will also be an angel. when you find your best friend, the two of you will not have an easy time. But you have to understand that the hard things you go through, if you choose to go back, they showed me Earth Place as a one-room schoolhouse. They said this place is the place where you learn, and they said it will be where I learn. Not that all humans learn, it's all of us. I would be part of that learning, and that I would have a chance to learn. If I didn't learn, I couldn't help. So I would be going through a lot first, and then how I handled it would determine how much I could help. And they said, don't let it harden your heart. So then they showed me what could happen after, and I don't remember that part. I don't remember. I just remember feeling good, and I remember music. But that's the part I don't remember, and maybe they blocked it, because if they laid it out for me, I always wonder if maybe I wouldn't work for it, or I would expect it. So I really I don't remember. I just remember them saying that I would have a hard life, and they weren't kidding. Bad things happened, hard things happened. And that really helped me, because when those things happened, I thought, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. We can get through anything. And we absolutely have. And knowing that I'm not alone, and knowing that no one is alone, we all have angels, people on the other side that guide us. That has helped me a lot. And also, when I was there as a 4-year-old, I had a chance to see what God was like. They showed me the presence of God, because I was being taught that God was personified, God was a he, and I had the idea at that time in my human mind that God was old man on a cloud. And they told me that if I didn't get right with that when the trauma happened, I would be too mad at God to work with God. So they let me see what God was really like. And I was filled with love. And I saw God not in a human form, but as looks like beach sunlight, beautiful energy. And it just enveloped me. And I didn't want to come back. After that, I didn't want to come back. But I saw my parents. I didn't want to hurt my mom. So that was the reason I came back, really, as a 4-year-old. But seeing and feeling God's love on the other side, and what that was really like, that and knowing that I was part of that, not because I was an angel, but just because I was a beloved child of God. We're all part of that love. And that's really what they meant when they said, you're special, but you're not special. Just because you're an angel, God loves every being, whether you are a ladybug, a blade of grass, a slug, an angel, all equal. I saw that there. We are all equal. And that's one of the things that I get to teach people here, is that everybody counts. We're all equal. And I saw that when I was there.
Do you mind talking about sort of the difficult experiences that you had that they said you were going to have that they couldn't show you?
Sure. You mean the trauma?
Whatever you feel comfortable talking about.
Sure. Um, well, they told me that I would marry my best friend, and he would be an angel. And so I really thought that that would mean the first husband I had. He really looked like an angel, and he was very kind and wonderful. So I, of course, married him right away, and that marriage didn't last, and that was very sad. So I had a marriage that ended sadly, and So I had a divorce early in life, which I know a lot of people listening have had divorces, and that's sad. So I share that with you. In addition to that, I lost some children. So I have children on the other
Oh,
side, babies on the other side. And then there's some, when I was a school teacher for a while, and when I was teaching school, the administrators where I taught in a small town, they were, I'm going to say this in a way that I don't want to out anyone, but they just were not the kindest people, and they tend to be bullies. Um, and let's say sometimes angels are in human form, and I was part of the teachers union, so that was a good thing. But there are some pretty horrible things that happen to teachers in small towns. Some really abusive, horrible things, and I'm really surprised at some of the things that happen in the underbelly of our world, and I had to go through them so I can understand what other people experience. So there was loss. I went through poverty, near homelessness. My husband and I took in a couple of my students, and through them we saw their abuse and their poverty stories. And there were times that we only had 35 cents in our bank account, but we didn't lose faith, and we stayed together. And we just kept at it, because I knew that if God put this call in my heart, that it was on purpose. And eventually I decided that I was going to do this work on purpose, but I wasn't quite ready to be a psychic, to do spiritual work, because I thought, well, people are just going to think I'm nuts. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a minister. Yes, I'm going to be a minister. So I went to seminary, and I worked in churches for a while. And I thought that I had found just my absolute dream position. But as soon as they found out that I was spiritual and I could talk to Jesus and that I could talk to angels, they let me go. And I thought, that's just nutty,
wow.
isn't it? But it's the way. So
Hmm.
I got to experience that. And I had a conversation with God, and I said, look, you promised I need you to be my employer. So let's just do this. And that's what I'm doing now. So I've been doing it legitimately full time, working with God for almost 10 years now, with no backup plan because I don't need it. And God has pulled through. And I believe that's the part of my near death experience that I couldn't remember, the good stuff that I don't know if they blocked, or I just couldn't remember because it was so beautiful and shiny. But after all the trauma that I got through, that's important, because every day I work with people who are experiencing their version of many of those stories. And I get to say, I don't know what it's like for you, but I know what it felt like for me, and I can hold space for you. Then I get out of the way, and I channel spirit for them, and I can share guidance that I get. And that's what I do.
I guess it's a good thing that you were, ejected from the ministry, because you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now, right?
Yes, it all happened for a reason. And I did not tell them that I was an angel, because that's hard to tell people, but I am open with people about, I see spirit. I am a psychic. I know things, because I believe in that. I believe in being open and authentic. My children know, my children's friends know. I'm open about it, because I'm not doing anything that's out of bounds of God's light. It's all light filled. It's all good. I will tell you that it's just been in the last 6 months or so that I've started to tell people that I am actually an angel. And that's big. That is big for me. Rachel's out.
She's being fully authentic.
Yeah, it's big. But this is what we're supposed to do on this earth. Be us, be who we are, be who we came here to be.
So what does that mean to be an angel? Can you describe just a minute, I don't know what angels are. Or maybe I'll tell you what I think I know. They're like a distinct kind of being, and they're not always. They rarely have an existence, a human life. That's as much as I know there. So, yeah,
It's pretty
tell us
good.
about it. Yeah.
It's pretty accurate. Angels rarely have human lives. They are messengers of God. And there are different types of angels, not different ranks, because as Spirit has told us, we are all equal. But there are different types of angels that have different jobs. For instance, every city has an angel assigned to it. Every school has an angel assigned to it. Every person has one or two guardians assigned to it. There are worker angels that if there's a building being built, there's an angel there temporarily as that building is being built. If a child is applying for college, an extra angel might be assigned. And so I am from the angelic realm. So when I am not in this physical form, my home base is the angelic realm. And that's where I was created. That's where I live. And so when I'm not in this cellular body, the part of me that thinks and feels and loves, that spirit part, I'm pure angel. And at some point, I either asked to come here or I was told to, given a mission to come into a body, incarnate, and be here, both to contribute and to learn what it's like to be human. And we can go back to my angel ancestors way back in the book of Enoch, when the story of the fallen angels. Archangel Metatron is someone I work with all the time. So if someone's having an issue with, they think a supposed haunting in their house or something, I'll call in Archangel Metatron, because really what is usually going on is some being or some person who's out of body, an earthbound spirit, has taken a wrong door and they're lost. So Archangel Metatron and I will help that being go home to its family. It's usually misbehaving because it's hungry or it's lost or something. Metatron is really good at that because Metatron remembers what it's like to be human, like me. Metatron's one of the few that's been human before. And what happened at one point is there were angels that were assigned to watch over humans, and the angels fell in love with the humans, and they created a race of half human, half angels, and a race of these big giant people were created. And in the Bible and in legend as well, it said that this race were fallen angels. They weren't. God rehomed them. God loves all. God gave them a new place to live. But it said that they were fallen angels and that they are negative. But in truth, we have the rule of it just is. We don't need good and bad, light and dark. Just is. Everyone has their place. And so we have some angels on earth that are called earth angels. There are some angels that are part human and part angel, and they walk among us all the time, just as we have some star seeds. Some people who are from maybe the Lyrians or the Pleiadians, and they are part human and part star seed. The way I am formed is I am pure angel inside, and I popped into this costume that is a human. And it's kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around because I also came here through a mom and dad. So how did that work out in my brain? I don't know, but that's what the angels said.
Or it's either that or you're walk-in, right? You've got to.
Right.
They're your two
Walk in.
options. Yeah.
Yeah, a walk in. Yes, very possible. That's what I know. That's the best answer that I have. And I have prayed on it and asked so much. And that is what they tell me.
Fascinating. And is this your only human lifetime, as far as you know?
No, I know that I've had a few, because when as an angel, I have access to all my other lifetimes. So often when I sleep or when I meditate, I'll slip into another lifetime. And when I look down, I can see my feet or I can see my hands.
Mm.
And once in a while, it's really cool, Rod, because I will have a client or a friend or one of my cousins even, and I'll be talking to them and I'll realize, oh, we had a lifetime together. It doesn't happen often. And so that also gives me proof that I've had a human incarnation before. And I'll just slip in and see a little bit of that data or that story. So yes, I've incarnated before. One of them is Atlantis, which is very exciting because I know that a lot of the energy and data from Atlantis is starting to come back to aid us now. So that's fun to remember and see. Whole different conversation, but so good.
Yeah, my friend Nikki Allen, who's a psychic, has only had that recent connection with Atlantis as well. I think that's happening to a lot of people in that sort
Yes,
of psychic medium realm.
so good.
So I'm going to
Yes.
segue a little bit and
Mhm.
ask you. I always like to ask yes, especially psychic ones, about ETs. So have you ever had any encounters with ETs or
Yes.
UFOs or UAPs?
Yes. So running parallel to all of this, um, I'm thinking that this is after my near-death experience when I was 4, after. And I think it was about 6 months after I began to have visits from extraterrestrials at my house. And this is something I speak of openly often. And this group of beings call themselves Sarai, Sarai. And they have come to see me since I was little. And my bedroom in this old home we lived in was up on this big Victorian home. My bedroom was upstairs, and I could feel when they were there in the backyard because it had a certain hum to it. Not, you couldn't hear it, but you could feel it. And they also had this very specific calling card where they would sometimes put an apple on my bed because I had a big dog, a golden retriever. And when I was to go to the ship, there was a little ladder that would come down, little tiny ladder. And I could fit up the ladder, but I had to throw the apple so my dog, Barney, would chase after the apple so I could go up the ladder. So yeah, I've been in a ship before, and then it just stopped. Then I didn't see them for a really long time. When we moved here to Des Moines, they started to come back. And one night, one was just standing by me, and it looked like a gray, but he or she was taller and was communicating with me and was putting something in my arm. I don't know what it was. It didn't hurt. And then the next day in meditation, I was contacting again, just in a way that I thought might work. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just said, okay, I'm sending you love in my heart. Can you talk back to me? And I got a response. Then they said, we are Sarai. I didn't know their name when I was little. I just was really into E.T., the movie, because that came out,
Mm-hmm.
what, 1983, 1984, something? I don't know. Completely my childhood. So when they were in my backyard, I was like, I am the coolest kid ever because they're in my yard. So when they came back just a few years ago, when they had a name, I was really excited about it. And once in a while, they would come back and visit me. So I want to say real quick that I have kind of documented this. I don't know if that's the right word, but in my podcast, this whole visit and my relationship with them, my podcast is called Angel Talk. And if people want to know more about Sarai, it's all in there. When they came back and all the visits, it's real juicy. It's in there because sometimes they hover above my back deck and we have these weird conversations. It's kooky. So the coolest thing that's happened to me is I was just watching listening to a podcast when I was getting ready one morning, I think just about 2 months ago. And the woman who was talking, she said, "Oh, and I talked to this collective named Sarai." And I felt so validated because I thought, oh my gosh, someone else knows them too. So I know that there are people that are connecting so much to ETs, and specifically the ones that I know. But yes, I've had lots of visits with the ETs and get light codes from them. And they tell me that they work with the angels directly. And sometimes angels and extraterrestrials they're in cahoots. They work together, and they've worked on projects together, like the Pleiadians and the angels work together to what were they? Something they said about the eclipse, that there are so many experiments happening during the eclipse that the angels and the aliens, they don't like aliens, extraterrestrials were watching what was happening to make sure everything went okay. So they were surrounding everything. So that was kind of neat to hear and see. I get so excited.
You do. Tell us about
Yeah.
light codes. I've heard that mentioned before, but I've not actually bothered to look it up. So what does that mean when you get light codes?
When I get light codes from my angelic family, it'll first begin with my ears ringing or a humming, and then there will be some energy that will come through the top of my head and then through my body. And I'm making this shape because it's a vibrational frequency that will come into my body, and it's simply information. It doesn't come in as words, but it's information that we need. Could be something for a meeting that we have the next week, or it could help us with a relationship. But it's a code that comes through the light. So it could come from a light being, it could come from the sunlight, it could come from God's light, and it usually comes into one of our ears. Usually comes from my left ear because my left side angel is very verbal. Comes from our left ear or our right ear, and then from our crown chakra, top of our head, into our body, and we'll kind of go into our heart. Or if there's a part of our body that needs healing or some sort of correction of disease, it'll come into our body. And then it just rests there, and it either heals what needs to be healed, or if you have a meeting or a conversation that's coming up, you might have one of those moments where you speak eloquently and you think, well, where did that come from? The light code. Mm-hmm. It's data.
As you grew up with this sort of knowing, and as your understanding of who you are as an angelic being evolved, did you share that with your family and friends, or is it something you had to keep to yourself? How did that work out for you?
I kept it to myself for the most part. And then as I got older, I began to share it more. I didn't want to be the strange kid. When I did share it, there were a couple of precious friends that embraced me when I was little. When I did share it a couple of times when I was little with teachers, I got in trouble for lying, or was told by one of the nuns at church that I was not to pretend that I knew God more than others, to humble myself. So I really made sure that I kept quiet about it, and know that there was a big part of my life that I ignored my gifts. And when we ignore our gifts, they do go dormant. I wanted a normal life, and they told me in my near-death experience that I would have a normal childhood. So I really did. My gifts went quiet. I couldn't see the future. I couldn't see light beings. I was just watching the Cosby Show and things like Saved by the Bell and things like that for a long time. And then it seems like when I got more confident with who I was as a person and less attached to what people thought of me. And as I went through my journey with the trauma we spoke of before and began to navigate that and learn how to be angry with God and realize that that didn't make God go away, then my gifts started to blossom. Because it's a real relationship. Basically, I just started to live my life my way, based in love. And then they came back and I started to tell people. And really, I tell everybody now. I mean, I don't like introduce myself. Hey, I'm Rachel and I'm an angel. I don't do that. I don't go out in the wild and tell people, but I don't hold it back. And our culture is so involved in, hi, how are you? And what do you do for a living? So it can be really fun. It can either be a conversation starter or it can clear the room. It just depends on where I am. But I always tell people now.
It's way more fun. It's
It is.
when I go to like social gatherings, people I haven't met before. You know, there's like you say, there's like, what do you do for a living? And yeah, you know, I have a job like everybody else, but the really interesting thing I'm working on is this. And I talk to people about their near-death experiences. So that's the way I, for the most part, and they're like, really? It's way more interesting than just talking about everyday life.
So good.
So I wanted to ask you about, yeah, this is like, I asked, this is a question for me personally, and I know it's for everybody else as well. So I'm interested in, I feel like the only connection I have to the spirit world often is just through dreams, and they're just flat out weird, right? A lot of the time I just don't understand them, and I've been trying to remember them, and like this morning I woke up at like 5 o'clock and I could remember I'd had 3 separate dreams, so I'd like, you know, turn my phone on and spoke into it. So I've got a record of it because they fade really fast, and I'm interested in, you know, having this better connection to my guides and angels. Like I believe that they're there, but I just feel like I've never ever had any sort of connection to them at all. And so I'm curious as to how we can foster that connection with the non-physical.
Mm. Beautiful question. The first thing that, okay, I'd like to first start by saying that I'm going to channel this answer for you, if that's okay, from your guides.
I knew
Would that
that
be
you
all
were going
right?
to do that, so that's great. Yep,
You did? Good
I
job.
did.
Wonderful. And when I channel, I'd like you to know that sometimes I look elsewhere, so I'll break eye contact a little bit, okay, when I do this. It's just something that I do. So I am hearing them, first of all, answer with gratitude that you're asking this question because they feel you all the time and they're really excited for this relationship to be more cohesive and friendly. So, oh, so much gratitude. They're so excited about this. And they're saying, well, you are spirit, so this should be easy, right? Because you are the same as us inside. So we can really pick up where we left off when you were dreaming with us last night. And they're showing me how delightful it is for them to pick out their costumes every night, how they're going to show up in dreams as this person or this person. It's always them, they say, with the exception of when you dream about some of your relatives. That really is them. They are saying that though they can hear your thoughts quite easily, they'd like you to spend some time speaking to them with intention, so that, in other words, they're calling you to a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Could you sit with them and say, all right, well, this is what I want to know about you. What do you look like? What is it about me that makes you laugh? What is our favorite thing to do together? When can we connect? Build a relationship just like you would with anyone, because these are your not just lifelong friends, but soul lifelong friends. They have been with you for ever, ever, ever. And then they're saying, could you build a meditation process with us? And that meditation can look like whatever you want. If it is painting, if it is working with clay, if it is sleeping, a light sleep, if it is listening to music, pull us in. We'll do that with you. Really, the answer for us is creating time together, because we love how creative you are and how busy you are. But when you get involved in the doing, we tend to sit in the background. We love doing with you, but when you are being, that's when we feel like we're with you and we can get to know you more. And it's not just you wanting to know us, we also want to know you, because this version of you is different than all the other versions you have. So it's exciting for us too, they're saying.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's terrific. Okay, let's see my other questions here.
Do you meditate, Rod?
I try to, and I gotta say that whenever I try to here's where I'm at with meditation. Whenever I try to meditation, it's like a must have or a must do, and I know that that doesn't work. So I've actually given up on the idea of having, unless I can find a place where it's like I really do want to meditate, not because it's good for me spiritually,
Yeah.
then yeah. So the thing that I'm actually drawn to is just going for a walk out, in
Yeah.
nature. It's one of those things I can rarely miss, and I take my shoes off now and walk on the grass and do that for half an hour. So I feel that's the
Okay.
closest I can get, and then sometimes naps as well. Oddly enough, I feel
Those
drawn to
two
having a
sound
nap.
perfect.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah.
So when you nap, I'm hearing them say, let us float with you. So when you nap, I'm hearing them say, play DMT music, DMT music.
Mm-hmm.
So you and the listeners look that up on YouTube, DMT music. It will
Yeah.
emulate DMT mushrooms, but the same
Mm-hmm.
thing in your brain. So you might not get the most restful nap, but you'll get all these creative ideas, and it will allow your body to rest, but your mind to stay awake, and you'll you'll float, much the way that when we're in our light sleep, we have those creative dreams, and it's almost, well, it's so conducive to astral travel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're on a walk with them, I can see them putting on a human form with you, shoes off, walking in the grass, crunching leaves with you. They love that. And so anything you imagine, we're pulling on the law as above so below right now. Anything you imagine with good intention, you actually are creating in the spirit world. So as you imagine, I see two guardians with you, one on your right, one on your left. So as you imagine them walking with you, they actually are. And they're saying, can you just let the meditation be that? We don't want this to feel like something you have to practice. We're not a math book. We're not a This isn't violin practice, friend. Just be with us when you feel like it.
Okay.
Sorry for everybody who loves to play the violin. Please don't come at me. Just an example.
Now I've heard you mention that there are more angels incarnated as humans at this time because it's needed for our evolution. Can you talk more about
Yeah.
that?
Mm-hmm. Uh, as a as an as Earth, people who are here on Earth, all of us who have chosen to incarnate, we have chosen to be here at this time because we are here for the 1,000 years of peace. So you, before you were born, you knew that at this time in your life, you'd be here when the 1,000 years of peace was to begin. That's why you're here. Now, as soon as we get into our body, we have amnesia. We forget all these things. But everybody who's here on the planet is here for a reason. They're either here to support it, or they're here to be the antagonist or the protagonist. Everybody's here for a reason, even if they're kind of like in the video game, the non-player.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a role. And to support and to guide are the angels. Some of us are here just to deflate the fear, because there really is nothing and no thing to fear. Because we're in the very, very, it's like the preface of the book of the 1,000 Years of Peace. It just began. And because nobody here on earth has seen it or remembers it, we need angelic guidance, because angels are not connected to time and space. So when I told you that I have all my memories of other lifetimes, I remember what it was like in the 1,000 Years of Peace before. So when I guide people who are saying, oh, but there's always going to be war, there's always going to be famine, something that I bring to the table is, yes, that's true now. And here's what it can look like when we heal that. I understand what it looks like now. And beloved, this is what God is showing us. Here are the next steps to move from that. And so I hear one of the archangels, who are kind of like my managers, say, Rachel, tell the audience this. It's not that the world is in need as if they can't do it themselves. We're answering prayers. The world has been asking for help for so long, and all prayers are answered. And this is the way God is answering prayers. God is always there, and the angels are the messengers. We're here to help. We're here to do whatever is needed.
So I have another random question. I recently, Terrence Howard recently did an interview with Joe Rogan. I don't know if you know who both those people are. So the thing that has Terrence has caused, there's a lot of division. Eh? There's people that fall on either side of Terrence is crazy, Terrence is brilliant. I think one of the most important things is he's willing to talk about what he felt passionate about and what he felt strongly as being the truth. And for me, it comes back to the more practical aspect is that, like the source of energy that we all rely on, to run our daily lives is, determined by fossil fuel availability and things like that. And what he's talking about is something that Nikola Tesla was talking about, which is like an energy source that's very, very, very cheap or free, and the impact that would have on the world. So I'm interested in like forwarding those kinds of conversations, even though they're going to be very much against very powerful and very established, people and organizations who don't want that sort of change to occur. So I'm just wondering, and I know there's other people that sort of feel the same way. So how can we forward that? How can we make it so that there's a future that is like that, where energy is more or less free and all of the benefits that come along with that?
I want to jump to the end first. It will happen. It is happening. And to get there, we as a people, we are building a different way to communicate. And we're also learning how to help each other not be so fearful of being without. So the people who now own the expensive fuel power, they're fearing what their life would be like if they didn't have it. But what's going to happen is the people who are working on the power that is accessible to everyone, they're going to be able to show what it's like when everyone is equal. And we're actually going to see that in the political system, in the money system, and even in a church structure that people can have access to if they want it, and in a school structure. we're going to see the paradigm, the triangle, go flat. And the energy structure is one of the first things that will shift. The political and the energy structure and the money structure are the first three things that will shift. So it will appear to the people that are hanging on to power right now, it may appear to their egos at first that they are beaten. They're not. It'll be a blow to their ego. But what I'm seeing, what I'm being shown is that this is something as souls that they signed up for. They signed up to come in with something really big and giant that could be the giant that could be slayed, so that something more peaceful that's for everyone could come in. And they will actually end up being the advisors. They'll come in, they'll come back. It's going to be difficult for a while because we're going to butt heads, and there's going to be some civilians against civilians. That's going to be ugly for a while, and but it's temporary, because I see these people over here that have all of the expensive stuff. They're going to say, all right, we see it. We're done. They're just going to wipe their hands of it and say, okay, show me what you got. That's because we're in the 1,000 years of peace. Peace is the commodity, the angels are saying. Peace is the new commodity.
Yeah, that makes sense, because a lot of the fighting that goes on in the world is for resources. So if you don't have to
Yes.
fight to get that resource anymore, then there's no more fighting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a simplistic view. That's the way I see it.
We're going to a more simplistic way.
Rachel, can you tell us about what you've got going on as far as how you work with people? I don't know if I don't think you have a book, but if you've got anything like that, can you fill us in on how people can get in touch with you if they want to? We'll put all that in the show notes.
Yes. Well, I joyously work with people one-on-one. I connect them to their angels, and we work on whatever people feel that they want to bring forward. So I collaborate with their angels and their family on the other side and their ancestors. And I do that on Zoom for my clients that are not near me. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. Or if you live close to me, I have an office in the city that I work from. And then I also do something called Mindset Luminary, which is a program where you can work with me more often. And it's not necessarily coaching, but it's redesigning your life with the help of your angels. And all of that is on my website. And one of my most precious things that I do is I get to teach different classes, and I have my podcast, Angel Talk, and all of that is available on my website, rachelcorpus.com.
Okay, terrific. And do you or the angels have any message that you'd like to leave the viewers with? And I've got way more questions, so maybe we'll have you come back for a live stream or something, but do you have a message before we finish up?
Mm-hmm. Yes. The angels are grateful. The angels are grateful to the listeners for being open to their messages, and they are noticing that your listeners are bringing kindness back. And they're thanking them for that. And they're thanking you, Rod, for having the channel Rachel on and for giving her a chance to be her authentic self. This is new for her. It is new for me to talk about my angel self. And just thank you very much. And they bless you.
Well, thank you to the angels, and thank you to you, Rachel, for being a guest on my show today.
Thank you.